Okay, so the first question is, what is the vibe in the laboratory? How is it with the team?
You mean when I was engineer, when I
Yeah,
was doing
yeah.
lab work?
When you were engineer, what it is like in the laboratory?
Okay. Well, when I did my engineering studies, I mainly worked at first mainly in companies, so not that much in laboratory in labs. I was more like factory floors, and I worked like Johnson and Johnson's and places like that. But then I decided to do graduate studies, so masters and PhD, and there I worked quite a lot in the lab. So it was nice because as an engineer, you work with other disciplines. So, for example, I worked in with biologists, chemists, mathematicians, physicists. So that was nice. We had people from all over the world who worked on a research project, and I was mainly working in what was called tissue engineering, which is you know, the aim of this field is to make artificial organs in vitro, so not in nature. So you have to work with biology and chemistry, and you have to be an engineer to make that happen. So so it was quite nice. It's a novel field, so yeah, that's
Okay.
nice.
The next question is, how did you manage to do your engineer company after the study? How did you how you make the steps to go there to build it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, of course, the aim, the goal of an engineer is to take something and make it work. Okay, so that's a bit different from a chemist, for example, who wants to study in the lab and maybe had less of an intent of bringing something to real life. So we always had the intention of taking what we made in the laboratory work somewhere. So we decided to we had a technology that allowed us to interact with blood, for example. So we decided to make blood tests with the surfaces we fabricated because they were very good to inhibit activation of platelets. So we had a nice technology, and we had some promising results. So we decided to get funds, to get money, to bring this technology to the physician's office. So it starts with an idea, and then you meet some people who think it's a good idea, and then I participated it was like a place where it was called Montreal Angels. So it's investors that look at different new technologies and decide if they want to invest. And so I participated, and we were noticed there. So that's when really the company started. And after that, we got some funding from the government at first, and we got some employees. But of course, it's a long road, and eventually the project is still going on, but there's not yet, something that can be bought by a clinician that exists.
Okay. The third question is, did you have a good balance between your family life and work?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, excellent. Well, when I was more a typical engineer at first, it was more like industry work, depending on production rhythms, and so you can work more in some periods. And I worked a bit in Montreal, so that was maybe a bit more difficult. But when I started to do a master's and a PhD, then it was more in the lab, and these are good conditions because you get good funding. Because I had some funding to do my master's and PhD. You can take some vacation if you have something for a given day. You can take it off if you don't have important experiments. So the balance is very good, I think, when you are in the lab. When we started the company, then of course you have maybe a bit to travel more to get to see investors and so on. So it was a bit more demanding, but yeah, I always managed a good equilibrium between.
Okay. And what helped you the most in your study to become an engineer?
Well, to be an engineer at first at the undergraduate, so when you start, you need mathematics and physics, I think most, because even though I'm a chemical engineer, it's not that important to know chemistry. That's a bit weird, but it's not the most important thing. I think if you're a good mathematician, if you're good in maths and you like physics, I think you can be a good engineer. It would help you very much to go through the undergraduate studies. And then, of course, you have, depending on what you want to do, if you have communication skills, if you have good organization skills, if you have some leadership, then that can help quite a lot too, to get through the studies, but also to get a job and to work in different companies. Yeah.
Okay. What is the main tip you will give to a student who want to follow your engineering career?
Well, it's a good question. If you want to be an engineer, as I said, I think you have to. I think you have to fit the mold that is you need to perform in I think in maths and physics, and be curious and always want to bring products to real life. So that's, I think, is the basis of a good engineer. But of course, if you want to do exactly what I did, then eventually I started to teach and I started to do research. So that's a bit different of a profile. So then I started to be more interested into fundamental studies and lab experiments and bringing experiments through a company to be commercialized. So that's a different skill set. But then if you want to do that, you need to be perseverant. You need to be curious. You need to be good, I think, to work in teams to some extent. And of course, then now I teach, so then that's just something else too.
Okay. And why did you decide to teach after all these years in engineering?
Yeah, well, it's a tough decision. It's always, you have to choose what you prefer. I like being an engineer. I like working in companies, and I like doing research too. I like the company I started. That was real fun. But when I started teaching at master's level, I was teaching maybe 1 or 2 courses every year, and I always liked that. It was always fun. And when I had the chance to work at the collegial level, then it was really fun for me. I found that I could, link with other people. I could still work in science, but maybe help more people that way than what I did before. So, it's a tough decision, but I don't regret it at all. I like teaching. Yeah.
Okay. And what did you like the most in engineering?
Yeah, I think, for the engineering part, I think it's the problem solving that I liked the most and working with other people. I remember, for example, when I worked at Johnson & Johnson, we had problems with part of the fabrication line, and then you have to find what is the problem quickly because the plant is stopped. So I like the problem solving aspect. Also, when you could change the product to make it better, you could do some small changes, but it would have a big impact maybe on sales, on the quality of the product. So that I like that very much. So that's for the engineering part. That's what I prefer. Yeah.
Okay. If you did some internship while studying, do you think they are useful or not?
Yeah, very. Yeah. It was co-op at Sherbrooke where I studied, so very useful to see exactly what you like. I worked in Johnson & Johnson at Johnson & Johnson's. I worked at CAE where they did nuclear plant simulators in Montreal. I worked also in research, so I did some internships in chemistry research and in chemical engineering research. So that's very nice, I think, if you want to really be sure of what you want to do after. So yeah, it's very nice experiences, and also you get paid during your studies, so that's a nice thing too.
Yeah. And when you had your first internship, what did you find the most difficult in there for your first time?
It went very well. I think the most difficult thing was maybe because I was studying in Sherbrooke, so I lived at home still. So now I had to go in Montreal, a small apartment, cold in the winter, and not very well equipped. So that's what was maybe the most difficult part. But the working part was quite easy. It was fun. It was I fit quite nicely, I think.
Okay, and for the last question, what future engineering has, do you think? Like, what you think?
Well, good question. I think it's a bright future. You have many new disciplines that that are coming. For example, everything that touches the environment is very much more present than it was when I was studying. So there's many opportunities there. All the biotechnology field, when I was studying, there were no biotechnology and engineering. Now you can do that at the undergraduate level. So there's many opportunities there. Many probably new companies that will work the biopharma, food industry. So there's many new things that happens in engineering. That's only for the chemical engineering part, but other engineers the same thing. And I think that also the traditional fields still exist. I mean, there's still plastic plants. There's still petroleum that's being treated. There's still pulp and paper. So I think there are many opportunities here.
Oh, okay, thank you.